I guess we can move to the meeting, the cabinet meeting.
3 weeks ago, we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have.
That was funny. Yo, that was bad funny.
Aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it. And we don't need them. We estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. And we're way ahead of schedule. If you look at what we've done in terms of the destruction of that country, I mean, we're way ahead. Think of it. They have no Navy. And they had good ships. 154 ships have been shot down and are resting very nicely at the bottom of the sea. And we did that in a matter of less than a week. Because we have the greatest military in the world by far. Nobody even close.
Yo, Trump has the most interesting speech pattern I think I've ever heard from a politician. We have the best military by far, not even close. Like such unnecessary follow-up.
So we estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission. 26 days in, we're extremely, really a lot ahead of schedule. The Iranian regime is now...
We're ahead of schedule? Were there not reports coming out of the White House in the first few days that this would take 4 or 5 days? Yeah, LOL, we're ahead of schedule. Sure we are. We are behind schedule, which is why you are deploying boots on ground to speed this up, as well as the fact that you're learning regime change does not happen by the air. Remember, Trump first thought that this would change by an organic revolution that was motivated and fueled by CIA and Mossad assets, which was admitted by Mike Pompeo, as well as Israeli and Hebrew media. Didn't work. The IRGC shut it down. Then we tried to start a war, and they attacked the whole region. Now it's been a month. So we're way behind schedule, actually. Very good bluff, though.
Admitting to itself that they have been decisively defeated. They're saying to people, this is a disaster. They know it. That's why they're talking to us. They wouldn't talk otherwise. But they're talking to us because they've got a disaster in their hands. They're defeated. They can't make a comeback. We're free to roam over their cities and towns and destroy all of their crazy nuclear weapons and missiles and drones that they're building. And we're doing that. They now have a chance to make a deal, but that's up to them. And they'll tell you, we're not negotiating. We will not negotiate. Of course they're negotiating. They've been obliterated. Who wouldn't negotiate? They are begging to make a deal. We'll see if we can.
Are we serious? They don't care about a deal. They don't want a deal. And your proposal, your 15-point plan that Caroline Leavitt casually went over, stipulates things that are completely unfair and asks them to remove any sort of military defensive capability from their IRGC, from their military advising, which has precisely kept them alive for this long, despite the fact that 2 powerful countries have been attacking them. So why would they agree to nullifying the military that's kept them in existence for several years, which is a part of your 15-point plan? You know what else is a part of your 15-point plan? Nuclear talks, nuclear enrichment, removing all nuclear capabilities. So, and they need that if they want to actually be a threat in the region and not be toppled as a regime, which is what you're doing right now. That's why they hedged that same plan. And it's like lies on top of lies and just constant hasbara, constant bullshit, constant rhetoric, constant propaganda. Who eats this up? Who believes this? This is like slop. It's so disgusting that he even has the gall to say such lies, utter such lies. And look at dickhead Rubio and dickhead Hegseth to either side of him. And you can see the guilt in there. It's almost like, I don't mean to read too far in and be one of these people like, oh, you could see it on their face. But I mean, you could see it on their face. Sorry. Like, you can see it on their face. They just know he's full of shit. This guy wants to be president and knows how unpopular this war is. And this guy's just enjoying his time before he's done. That's all it is. Stupid Christian nationalist, has no understanding of foreign policy, does what this guy says, adds a holy element to this war, a war that is destroying his people that look like him, and then this is some stupid Cuban who thinks he has a chance at president.
Make the right deal. And if they make the right deal, then the Strait will open up. Hormuz Strait will open up. And even now, we don't know if there are any mines. You know, they have 22 they call mine droppers. Think of it, who would have 22 mine droppers? There's a boat that drops mines. Who has 22 mine droppers? Except for people with very evil intention. So every one of those mine droppers has been struck with the same weapon we used to stop drugs from coming into the United States of America. When we hit those boats, it's the exact same weapon, extremely effective. We have unlimited supplies and extremely effective. But they have no more mine droppers. By the way, speaking of drugs, we're 98% down drugs coming in by water, by the ocean, by the sea. 98%. And we're trying to find out who are the 2% because we think they're the bravest men anywhere in the world. Maybe women. But whoever's on those boats is very brave or doesn't watch
He's witty and funny sometimes, I have to admit.
television. But where drugs coming in by sea, coming in by water, are 98%.
Nino Assyrian Bull, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, intel sources say that the real number of missiles destroyed by the United States is 1/3 of Iran's stockpile. Also, Iran does have millions of drones of various types. Yeah, they have a bunch and they make them. And you guys realize, when we launched an attack on their nuclear facilities after the 12-day war, Iran knew that this entire operation would resume in a full-fledged manner, that of which we're seeing today on the ground. Iran knew that this war would start. It wasn't a matter of if, it was just when for them. And so what do you think they did? They ramped up on their stockpiles. They reached into emergency reserves of money. They started taking a bunch of intel heads-ups and a bunch of intel advances from Russia and China as to when this war could start, how to go about it, who to hit back. You don't think all of these countries were working together to bolster Iran to survive this attempted regime change, as well as the fact that they're militarily armed with munitions for months and months and months to go? I'll tell you what, in this war of attrition, in this war of asymmetry, we see that Iran is not actually running low on missiles because they still send them out whenever they like, despite Pete Hegseth's lies. And remember, they're building them underground, so we don't actually have the capability of slowing these missiles and their production down until we effectuate boots on the ground and go inside of these missile facilities that are hundreds of feet under the ground. Hello. Why do you think we likely sent 10,000 more Marines to the already 5,000 that are on the way? Because we probably realize we're going to have to go underground. Whether it's Karg Island or inside of the actual country of Iran, we're going to have to be there. We're going to have to do some sort of special operations, something. Nuclear bombs could be used in order to damage or destroy the cutoff or the access from underground to above ground, so these missiles can't get pushed above the ground to be launched. So it's like, you factor all that in with the fact that Israel is running low on their defense system, and maybe that gives a plausible reason as to why a ceasefire may be the case in the beginning of April, so Israel and the United States can recoup. But if that's the case, it's not asymmetry. We're fucking losing. And I said this 2 days ago. I said, this has become such a war of asymmetry. This has become so asymmetrical. Iran has been able to kick us in the balls so many times. It's almost like, hey, that's not even the right word anymore. We're just flat out fucking losing. Flat out fucking losing. So this cabinet meeting, this COPAMIT meeting, is what it should really be called. It's nothing but lies and bullshit. Yep, 1/3 of the stockpile known. There's thousands unknown. That's what I'm saying. There's so much of this stockpile, we don't even know what they have. And by the way, they've had a trick up their sleeve for every step we've taken to further advance this military assault in Iran. They've had a trick up their sleeve every single time. I did a video on that. They've responded to everything perfectly. They've been excellent. Unfortunately, they've been excellent. So, you know, when you got a really strong Air Force, when you got the guarantee of gaining air superiority and dominance over a country, they're going to move their operations underground. Duh. And that's something I haven't seen any of them address. Marco Rubio is saying in a statement today that we don't need boots on the ground to reach our goals. Hey, dumbass, you absolutely do. Unless you got a tactical nuke up your sleeve, which will receive condemnation from the entire world. Gulf countries are already upset with us. Don't be fooled that they're joining this war. They're joining this war so they can destroy the IRGC because they realize the IRGC will weaponize U.S. bases in their countries to destroy them. So the Gulf countries have said, you know what, screw it. We're going to jump in because the United States, as long as they exist, will always charge up the Iranians to attack us. Let's get rid of them. But you can bet your ass after the IRGC doesn't exist potentially, these Gulf countries will no longer be closely allied like they once were with us. Hell no. You won't see the Qataris giving Trump billions of dollars anymore. Doubt it. Doubt it. Conqueror 530 says, can you explain the proposed invasion, Karg Island? How will this supposedly affect Iran? So Karg Island is 16 miles off of the coast of Iran. It's an island responsible for oil refinement. It's an island responsible for military infrastructure, military production, and it's heavily fortified from a military perspective. They are ready for a ground invasion. They're also ready for an air assault. They've been ready for an air assault. And despite our efforts, it's going to be very difficult because, could you guess where I'm going with this? A lot of the operations in Karg Island happen to be underground, as well as the fact that Iran has still been able to effectively export their oil to China, much of which is suspected to be coming from Karg Island during this conflict where they've closed the Strait of Hormuz. So these amphibious assault vessels like the USS Tripoli and other marine troops that are already on their way to the region or have already arrived are likely going to reach the tight 19-mile, the narrow 19-mile passageway that's better known as the Strait of Hormuz, where all of these ships pass through. These U.S. assets are going to arrive there, and there's a few decisions or a few ways they can go about it. What I can guarantee is they'll be met with drone attacks, missile strikes. Who knows what Iran has up their sleeve in order to perpetuate harm upon these Marines. They're going to have to get through the Strait of Hormuz and move 300 miles north to actually arrive at Karg Island. And when they do so, you can bet your ass Karg Island has a ton of military refinement, fortification, soldiers on the ground, ready to die, ready to fight, and launchers pointed at whatever docks these ships may arrive to, or however they go about it, whether it's from the air, parachute in, whatever have you. I don't know if we're actually going to physically put soldiers on the ground in Karg Island. I don't know if that's the best idea. I don't see why intelligence would go that way, but it's very difficult to know. You know, Trump has many options here. He can hit the power plants first, put the country into a blackout, and then try a military ground assault. That would make it easier for our special ops to get underground maybe, or do something in that manner. But what I can say is Trump is buying time for some reason. He said that we have 5 days after successful negotiations. The IRGC is like, what the hell are you talking about? We haven't spoke. Then he extended it to 10 days. That either tells me we're getting ready for a seriously violent assault, or we're buying time potentially for a ceasefire, giving Israel as much time as they need to effectively dismantle the IRGC from military capabilities and production for a ceasefire, so Israel can build back up their interceptor missiles in a lopsided way where Iran can't match the production in regards to their missile programs. Again, that won't work though because it's underground. This is all speculative. This is all guesses and theories. We don't really know what the plan is from the Pentagon. Of course, they're not going to tell us. But what I can certainly guarantee is, in regards to the boots on ground, once the USS Tripoli makes it to the Strait of Hormuz and the Marines enter the fight, that's boots on ground. They don't actually have to step onto Iran. They don't have to actually step onto the island. Once the amphibious assault vessels arrive and the Marines are fighting with weapons, with missiles, with launchers, with whatever weapons these ships are equipped with, which, by the way, are some of our best, if not our best, being the USS Tripoli, that's it. The boots on ground invasion has started. But how they're going to go about it is all speculative. It's difficult to say, but it will prove difficult. Remember, it's a lot easier for Iran to disrupt that passageway, blockade it, put mines in it, than it is for us to go there across the world, secure, and reopen it. That's their home base. That's their home court. So for them, all they've got to do is throw these cheap drones that they make in-house to scare these ships away. And what we got to do is secure that passageway that they have a coastline of access to, and then reopen it, and then guarantee insurance for the ships that pass through that nothing will happen again. So our military presence in the Strait may not directly affect the oil prices right away, because that's when things will actually get violent. We're going to have to pass through that strait and then get to Karg Island, and that's if we do it from an amphibious perspective. But many different ways it can go, but it doesn't seem like it's favoring the U.S. at all. And this is what I mean when I say things are a little bit lopsided in our favor, and who knows how much armed guards are on the ground waiting. The numbers are 250,000, but easily and likely they will surely grow. China been supplying thousands of rocket motors? Yes. China was meeting with Iran. Thank you so much, Nino Assyrian. China was meeting with Iran a few weeks before the conflict and supplying them with missiles that can hit amphibious assault vessels like the USS Tripoli and not sink them, but nullify their missile capability. So China gave Iran advanced missiles that can hit ships. That's the whole point. They did that because they expected a U.S. invasion. This was the preparedness that Iran had took on in terms of a mentality after the 12-day war and Operation Midnight Hammer. So I think the missiles are designated CM-302 missiles is what they're called. I can't remember, but I read it up a few weeks back, and this was reported by Reuters, and they're pretty reliable. So you have that. You have Russia sitting ducks, giving them intelligence advances. Not a good look for us. There's nothing we can do in secret here. You know, you might say Navy SEALs, you might say special ops, but they're sitting and they're ready. You know, you don't have the element of surprise anymore when you're in a full-fledged war. Hello. That you lose that once you start the war. We started the war 3 weeks ago. Thanks for the explanation, brother. Conqueror, God bless you. Thank you. Nino Assyrian says, my opinion, I think Karg Island is a deception. Trump is a sneaky snake. I believe they will invade somewhere else. Regardless, Iran will be ready. Yeah, certainly. Karg Island is key for their military production, though. So it's a target at some point. Maybe not early on, especially because there's been some sentiment or some rhetoric that we will attack. But at some point, it will be a target, no doubt. Who knows when? Like I said, it's all up for grabs. I don't want to tell you guys this is what's going to happen because things have gone in several different directions that we haven't expected. But what I can say is this weekend is, like right now, could be, you know, we might be within moments of this attack. Who knows, though? Who knows? Maybe Trump is waiting for next weekend. Maybe Trump is waiting for June. Maybe Trump is waiting for May. Maybe he's going to pause this for April, resume back in May. Maybe he's going to pause this, then hit him with a tactical nuke. Trump is in a corner right now. He's on his heels. The IRGC has effectively displayed they won't be toppled without U.S. soldiers physically in Iran, period. So, not a good spot for the United States. Not a good spot.
Sent down. And now we'll stop the drugs coming in by land. The land is the easy one. You had to stop the water. A lot of it came in through the water. Now it's all pinched. And these people are trying to come in by land. And we will, that's it. That's the easy one. But we had to take care of the water first. Nobody's coming in. Virtually nothing is coming in anymore. It was hundreds of millions of dollars a week were coming in by water. But they now have the chance, that is Iran, to permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions and to chart a new path forward. We'll see if they want to do it. If they don't, we're their worst nightmare. In the meantime, we'll just keep blowing them away, unimpeded, unstopped. Well, there's not a thing they can do about it. They can't do anything about it, you know. I tell you, if they could, you'd be hearing about it. You'd be hearing about it. You don't hear anything about it. They can't shoot our jets. We have the best military equipment in the world. No, not even a contest. And you see that with Venezuela. They had other equipment. They didn't have ours. It didn't work. Think of it. We did the situation in Venezuela. It was a great military operation, getting a very, very dangerous man who's killed a lot of people, forced people into our country. Incredible. He emptied his prisons in Venezuela, emptied his prisons into our country, and I hope that...
Dude, Trump is just like unbelievably difficult to watch. Let's see what J.D. Vance said. Skip to his part right here.
So, J.D., please.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. It's good to see everybody. Proud to be part of this team. Proud to be serving the president of the country. Let me just say a couple things. The first of all is the president summarized this very ably. But look, the Iranian conventional military is effectively destroyed. They don't have a navy. They don't have the ability to hit us like they could have even a few weeks ago. And what that does is that gives us options, Mr. President. Now, there's been a lot of reporting about diplomatic options, about negotiating.
Remember, the biggest threat, and we all know this, doesn't take a military expert or a military analyst or a combat veteran to make this conclusion or inference. It's not hard to discern from. The biggest threat that Iran poses is their missiles program, much of which is built hundreds of feet under the ground. If we don't nullify or immobilize their capability of being able to launch and, more importantly, create nukes, in which they were doing in the hundreds for several months after Operation Midnight Hammer, we have no chance of slowing down the attack on Gulf countries and Israel. Key thing to remember here, key thing that J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump step over every single time they explain the military decapitalization or the military decapitation of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. We killed Khomeini. We killed several other high-ranking military officials. Still, it's proven useless because Iran is still dealing a great blow and controlling the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is arguably just as important right now as their missiles. Two things that we have no control over. And two things that we likely won't have control over unless we have a long-winded boots-on-ground invasion. Save you the time. If you watched this J.D. Vance segment before, I probably just debunked everything he's about to say. But let's see what he'll say.
There's, of course, Pete and his team. There are further military options. But what we have now that we didn't have when the president took over just a little over a year ago is the ability to use every tool at our disposal to ensure that Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon. Because when I say options, I think it's important the American people know options for what? And it's options to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. You talk about people who walk into a crowded supermarket and have a vest on, and they blow up the vest and a couple of people get killed, and that's a terrible tragedy. What happens when what's on the vest is not something that can kill a couple of people, but can kill many, many tens of thousands of people? That is the most important American national security objective that exists.
Oh my God, what the fuck is he talking about? What did you just say? What does that have to do with the Strait of Hormuz? What does that have to do with their missiles program? What does that have to do with their nuclear enrichment program? What the fuck is he saying? Lord have mercy. God forgive me. Mama forgive me. I'm sorry for cursing, but this is hot garbage. When somebody has a vest and then we attack the country so now the vest can't kill a bunch of people. Nigga, what? What are you saying, bro? He's certainly more articulate than Trump, but smarter? Don't think so.
For
Lord have mercy.
any administration at any
Let's play that.
kill a couple of
Let's play that back. Am I missing context? I'm not sure what the hell he's talking about.
people, but can kill to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. You talk about people who walk into a crowded supermarket and have a vest on, and they blow up the vest and a couple of people get killed, and that's a terrible tragedy. What happens when what's on the vest is not something that can kill a couple of people, but can kill many, many tens of thousands of people? That is the most important American national security objective.
Yeah, okay, bro. They have a nuclear program, so you don't do what you're trying to do right now. Like, again, this is the whole anti-Islam rhetoric, the whole anti-Islam LARP. I said this 2 days ago. The anti-Islam foundation, or the anti-Islam ideology, the all Muslims are terrorists, they're all the same, that is the groundwork. That is the foundation. That is key for the neoconservative line of thinking. Without that, you cannot perpetuate these false notions or ideas. And so J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, and others so casually weaponize this ideology that has still plagued the brains of millions of Americans to justify this conflict that is currently ongoing in the Middle East, that being our war with Iran. However, once you dismantle such an ideology, it renders very useless, and it also opens up a gap where somebody realizes that we're at war for another reason. That's why it's important to dismantle this ideology. Now, I don't want to get theological here because that's not the point, and that's not the show. That's not what I do. But what I want to do is tell you that he's weaponizing the religion to further the idea that they're going to use nukes against Americans and Europeans to kill thousands of people. For what purpose exactly? I'm sorry. If the IRGC had a suicide bomber enter a flooded shopping mall somewhere in Europe and kill tens of thousands of people, that would render their country a nuclear target in seconds. And they know that. They have a relationship with Russia, with China. Why would they do that? What sense does that make? This is not 2004. You're not going to get away with telling people that a Muslim jihadi is going to kill 10,000 people because God told him to do it and he's going to get virgins if he does it. Yeah, it's like, hey, that's cool, that's funny. Like, that used to make sense. That used to line up with the American mind. Now it's like, what are you talking about? Because Marco Rubio just said, we started this war because Israel was going to strike first, so we had to get involved anyways. That's what Marco Rubio said. That's what the guy across the table from you just said a few weeks ago. suicide vest, tens of thousands of people. And they go, why the nigga gotta die? Why can't he just plant the nuke and then get out of there? And I get it, it's like the martyrdom, but it's just like so many things wrong with this rhetoric. And look at these idiots around him. Just eating it up. Eating this shit up.
That exists for any administration at any time is you don't want the worst people in the world to have a nuclear weapon. That's why the president is doing this. That's why the president...
So, fine. You don't want Muslims to have a nuke. Fine. Don't let the Muslims have a nuke. Whatever. I'm indifferent on that, but let's just be gracious and grant the fact that they shouldn't have a nuke. You know what I'm going to say? We had it figured out. We figured it out in 2016 with the JCPOA. And we almost figured it out again with Biden. He tried to revive that deal. You sabotaged that deal. You and Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump destroyed that deal. Iran can't have a nuke. Okay, Iran signs deal, no nuke. We destroy deal with Iran and then promise to topple their regime by rendering the IRGC a terrorist organization. Now Iran senses regime change and hedges a nuke. Then we go, you can't have a nuke. What the fuck? What the fuck? I'll fill in the gap for you. Israel. Okay, Israel. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy.
Care so much about this particular issue. I'll let Steve talk a little bit about the details of the negotiation, but the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Marco is I'm very mindful, of course, that we have a lot of folks overseas fighting very ably for the United States of America. I know Pete and the whole team, we're very proud of them, but they're fighting at a time where we are about to enter as Christians the most important week of the Christian calendar, the Holy Week that celebrates the return of Jesus Christ to Jerusalem. And so I want to say to all of my fellow American Christians, but particularly those serving in the Gulf, that I wish you all a very blessed Easter, a very blessed Holy Week, and we continue to stand behind you and continue to support you every step of the way. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you piece of fucking shit. You know what you're doing during this Holy Week? During this week that represents Jesus Christ and the third day and the resurrection and everything else between it and Palm Sunday and everything from the start to the finish. You know what you're doing during this Holy Week, this sacred week to your people, to your Christians? You're going to get hundreds of thousands of them innocently killed or displaced in southern Lebanon, in Gaza, in the West Bank, because there's tons of them there, as well as in Iran. Hello, there's tons of Christians in Iran. Piece of shit. Like the video if you haven't already. We've been on for 3 hours. We're doing the show, baby. We're doing the show.
Marco?
The most important job any president has is to keep the American people safe. And every president says it, but we have a president that means it and does something about it.
Really? Because actually the country's in the most danger it's ever been, technically. Iranian sleeper cells, false flag attacks to justify this war.
As the president outlined very clearly to the world on the night this operation began, Iran has been at war with the United States for 47 years. For 47 years, Iran...
A Cold War. Yeah, we're also at Cold War with like other countries as well. We're not striking the shit out of them, and we have been before.
...has been killing Americans and attacking...
And it's a Cold War for Israel, and we try to make up reasons as to why we need to attack Iran for our own interest, but they never hold up against actual weight or facts. Same thing with Pete Hegseth saying that the IRGC were responsible and these Iranian proxy groups were responsible for landmines in the Iraq War in 2003, 2004. It's like, no, bro, those were extreme Sunni militants and remnants of actually Mohammed Jolani, who is now the leader of Syria, as well as Osama bin Laden.
...attacking Americans across this planet. And other presidents had an opportunity to do something about it. And they all warned about how Iran was dangerous, but they refused to act. And this president's not someone that's going to refuse to act. He's not going to leave a danger like this in place. He's going to address it, and that is what he is doing. From the very first night of this operation, the president made it very clear. People like this, and now what I'm talking about is not the people of Iran. The people that run this country are radical Shia clerics. These are religious fanatics. Look what they are doing now, at their weakest point. This is the weakest Iran has ever been, and look at what they're doing. They're attacking embassies. They're attacking hotels. Imagine what these people would do if they had a nuclear weapon. That is an unacceptable risk for the world. By the way, the president's not just doing a favor to the United States and to our people. This is for the world. He defined very clearly on the first night of this operation what the goal was. We were going to destroy Iran's navy, and that is happening. we were going to, if it hasn't already happened, I'll let Pete speak to the specifics of it, we were going to destroy their missile launching capabilities. And we're well on our way to achieving that goal. We were going to destroy the factory so they couldn't make more missiles and more drones. And that is moving forward. Every single objective the president clearly laid out on the first night.
No, it's not.
Of this operation is being effectuated. Again, Pete will speak to the specifics of it. This has been an incredibly successful operation. Every day, it may not get covered because, you know, we're unlike them. We're not bombing embassies and hotels. We're hitting military targets. But every day, the Department of War lets the drummer get wicked over every portion of Iran that has these military capabilities, and the results are going to bear fruit for the world. The world is going to be a safer and a better place when President Trump's mission here is achieved.
Iran has been attacking these hubs. Bro, first of all, we started the war. Second of all, they're attacking the hubs because we are so much more powerful than them. They have to leverage our infrastructure, our key embassies, and our military bases to make us feel pain. They don't have intercontinental missiles to strike our land back. Thank the Lord they don't. So what they have to do instead is hit military assets in these Gulf countries. That's the balance that they have to find. They have to close the Strait of Hormuz to destroy global oil prices so people can go, why is my gas so high? Oh, it's because a war is happening in Iran, started by the United States. Trump is to blame. That benefits Iran.
And frankly, I think...
And I know this is like debunking 101, but I've just got to say it. I can't let these lies slip past me. It's ridiculous.
Countries around the world, even those that are out there complaining about this a little bit, should actually be grateful that the United States has a president that's willing to confront a threat like this and not allow it to continue to persist. Because
no, this is the biggest mistake in foreign policy in the last, actually probably ever. Probably ever. There's a reason why, despite, you know, proof to this is the fact that Obama's foreign policy was horrendous and even he didn't want to do this. Joe Biden wasn't the best. Even he didn't want to do this. Trump went right ahead, and the Epstein files were the perfect excuse to distract people. So...
these people will kill as many Americans as they have a chance to do, and if they have a nuclear weapon, as the Vice President pointed out, they could kill millions of Americans in the future, and that is a risk that was not going to continue to exist as long as we had this president.
Thank you, Marco. You know, it's very interesting because yes.
Okay, bro, 2 weeks ago you just said we fought them because Israel was going to strike first. Shut up.
Yesterday I was watching, is it Anthony Blinken, and he was saying that they should have done it, but they didn't do it. Nobody did it. Nobody did it for 47 years, Marco. That's the number, 47. I guess now it's 48 because we've been saying 47 for a long time. It's probably 48. But for 47, 48 years, every president should have done this. And some are saying now that they made a big mistake in not doing it, but we're taking care of business. Steve Woodcock, please. Distinct honor to the American cabinet.
Most powerful political hub in the world, that being the White House, they cannot figure their audio situation out. Every single time I watch these videos from the White House streams, bro, the audio is so cooked.
Report to you and your team on our negotiations with Iran. Mr. President, you directed Jared and I to pursue a diplomatic resolution with Iran prior
that you pursued in bad faith. Why? Because you brought maximalist demands to a table in which they could never be met under the premise that Iran never exists. Why do I say that? You asked them to destroy their proxy network. You asked them to destroy their missiles program. You asked them to only launch their missiles as far as the eye can see, as well as the fact that you asked them to destroy all uranium and halt enrichment for the foreseeable future. Why would they do that? And Donald Trump, under the same administration in 2018, May 7th, 2018, he tells the press the JCPOA, which is the former Iranian nuclear deal, is done. So bear in mind, the IRGC has already been backstabbed by this administration once. You come to the table the second time after backstabbing them, after killing their leader, Qasem Soleimani and Hassan Nasrallah, the key leaders in the axis of resistance, one for Hezbollah and then one for the entire axis, really. You kill those guys after making them terrorists, designating them terrorists. Now you come to the table and try to make maximalist demands. Why would they trust you? You're lucky they even came to the table. You're lucky they even were willing to negotiate. You're lucky they even had the idea of diplomacy in their mind. They were within every right to not talk to you. I'm just being critical. I'm being objective.